you have the opportunity to impact your client's life in all aspects.
The updated weight loss specialization will help trainers in many ways expand their career.
For the first time, we talk about the psychosocial aspects, the sociocultural.
You're going to be able to truly understand what your clients are going through when they have a specific weight loss journey.
All new information, new trends.
We were able to develop what we called personas.
To provide examples of what you might experience as a fitness professional when you encounter a client.
And build confidence as the months go by.
I'll feel more comfortable in my skin.
My self-confidence will improve.
Empathy is something that runs through the weight loss specialization.
It's about guiding people.
Regarding nutrition, regarding exercise.
I can go to bed at night knowing that I've done something good for the world.
It's great content and a blueprint for how to get results with your clients.
We put together a complete solution to help you, the professional, become the next weight loss specialist.
I'm Brad Dieter.
Ken Miller.
Casey DeYoung.
Wendy Batts.
Nolan Highland.
Mike Fanagrassi.
Welcome to NASM's Weight Loss Specialization course.
Welcome to another episode of Random Fit. I'm here with you, Mr. Ken Miller, and along with us is Mrs. Wendy Batts. Wendy, how are you?
I am fantastic. How are you?
Good. You look nice and cozy in that that red sweatshirt there.
I'm telling you, I'm getting into the spirit, you know?
Yeah, it's the season. I know you got your red. I kind of got it's more like a Ranger green than it is anything holiday related. But anyway, we're not here to talk about fashion as we did a few episodes ago. But as you say, it's, it is the season. But when it comes to this winter season, the thing that comes along with it is New Year's and New Year's resolutions, and that comes goals of, physical goals, financial goals, but, with a lot of people, it is about making change. And to make change happen, people make investments in themselves, and along with that comes investments in equipment. So today, we are excited. I'm going to speak on both our parts here to talk about as seen on TV fitness-based products. So there are just so many products out there. So when we were doing our research, man, there's a lot to filter through, to say the least. I mean, not just the products themselves, but the claims that they make and what they want to contribute to people realizing their best selves. So today we've got 4 products that have seen a lot of success as far as TV-based advertising and marketing. But a lot of it's just that, really savvy and smart marketing to get those sales up. So, and sometimes, they can do a little bit of what they claim, but sometimes it's not the whole story. It doesn't actually complete the picture on what they claim to do. But today we're going to look at, the good, the bad, and the ugly about what some of these products do based on the claims that they make.
Absolutely. I was super excited about this episode, especially this time of year, because people are trying to think, what is it that I can purchase for friends and family, especially at home? And like you said, there were so many different products out there. And I think we chose 4 of our favorite, selfishly enough, because as you said, there's so many claims. And so, I don't know, I was really looking forward to this one, but I know, and I'll actually kind of start us off here. There was one in particular that I found amusing because it's called the Shimmer sauna shorts. And you guys will be able to see a picture of these shorts. And imagine, if you're not looking or able to see and you're just listening, imagine a female and a male, okay, in these, not at the same time, but in this like shorts outfit that actually Velcros, almost kind of like a diaper would. And it actually goes up from the waist, and it kind of looks like sumo gear, but it covers your entire, glute and front region, if you will. And the claim to these were that basically they're sauna shorts. And so it's going to burn and melt off the fat in your midsection and in your glute area. And I mean, I was like, okay, how does that happen? First of all, as we know, as fitness professionals, and if some of you guys are new into learning about some of this stuff, you can't spot reduce anything. And you can't necessarily say that you're going to sweat off fat in your stomach or in your glutes. Basically, what you're doing is you may get very, like, because there's thermal, like neoprene that's involved in this stuff. And basically what's happening is you are going to sweat a lot in that region, but you're losing water weight. And, you see people out on the street and they're wearing trash bags and they're running and they're like, oh, I'm losing all this body fat. When in all reality, they're not losing body fat, they're losing water. Right. And so basically when you're thinking about that, as soon as they go home and they take all that stuff off, if they had to do a weigh-in, so like wrestlers or MMA fighters that have to hit a target number on a scale, I'm not saying it's bad to do that, but it's like, what are your like long-term goals? Like, is it something that you feel this is the only way to burn body fat? Because if so, there's a lot of education out there that will show you differently, because as soon as you drink your glass of water, you're probably going to rehydrate the tissue that you just dehydrated. And so therefore you didn't really do anything. So.
Yeah. And I think, what a lot of people don't realize, and you mentioned any sport where it is a weight-based classification. So if you, like you said, Wendy, you have to weigh 174 pounds and you've got that last pound to lose, but you've got 90 minutes to do it. Well, what do these guys do? Back in high school when we had to do it, I mean, you did what everybody else did, which is basically you just poke a couple holes in a trash bag. And all you did was really prevent, that the body from the ability to cool off. So what happens? You sweat more, right? And then it just propagates until you've lost all of this weight, water weight that is. And like you mentioned, you take that next glass of water, you put it on. So as far as those immediate needs, those time-based, weight-based goals, that's where a lot of that came from. But for the average person that we're probably talking to right now, who has, okay, this is going to be the year I'm going to get in the best shape I've ever been, or I haven't felt happy with my body in a long time, so I'm going to make changes. I'm going to go ahead and make the investment in this tool. In this case, it's the Shimmer sauna shorts. So
say that 3 times fast.
Yeah. She sells seashells. She sells on the seashore. But all it is you're just losing water, and you're just coming. I mean, and you might take it off, you wring it out because there's so much sweat and water in it, and then you look at the scale. It's like, hey, I lost 2 pounds, but it's a quick fix. I mean, it's not even a fix. It's just you're just tampering with the data as far as your body mass goes. But I just can't imagine you wrap that thing around, like you mentioned. I mean, I have that vision of a diaper now, and trying to run as an adult with a diaper on. As far I just can't imagine. Now if you want to run 1.5 miles, 2 miles, or even go on a long walk wearing that thing, I can't see that it feels comfortable after the first 2 blocks.
Well, what's crazy is, again, when you guys see this, I mean, it's thick material. And so it's got to mess with your gait. It's going to mess with your range of motion in your hips for sure. And again, I mean, how uncomfortable is it to have a sauna in your shorts? I mean, I just don't understand that. However, just if you think about like common sense wise, but I mean, they've sold a ton. And what's even more amazing to me is, of course, I was like looking for pictures and trying to find more information out there. There are a ton of products that are similar to these, sauna shorts that we're talking about that you can find today on Amazon. And there was one in particular that are saying that they are, just like yoga pants, but they're 3 times more thermal, and they're going to accelerate and heighten your ability to perspire. Well, okay, if, obviously it's not breathable material, as you said, of course you're going to perspire. But one thing that really kind of frustrates me because of what I do and the education that we're trying to provide to trainers and to other clients and individuals out there that want to learn is this is one of the things that they said, that it enhances the fitness effect by the fat around the belly and thighs are difficult to melt. Okay, first of all, we're melting fat. If you want to get a slim, toned body shape quickly, then these sweat shorts can maximize your gym results and speed up your fitness routine. That's literally a claim that a company that is pretty much mimicking the same type of sauna short that we're talking about is claiming. And, unfortunately, like I said earlier, you can't spot reduce. You're not melting off anything, and so it's very concerning because, again, I mean, yes, they may, be able to provide compression. And so therefore, that's one thing because, there's a lot of compression stuff out there to make you look and feel better. And I say feel better, maybe how you feel about yourself physically because you've kind of tucked things in or redistributed things, if you know what I mean. But it's just the scary thing is I just don't understand the benefit. And then if you're wearing something that's bulky, like the shorts that you saw in the picture, or the diaper that we talked about, it's just, are you really going to wear that in public? And then how do you clean that? That's kind of gross, so.
I know. How many uses can you get out of that before you're like, you know what? I think I need to give it a break for about a week. It's kind of like that person at the gym you see that person at the gym and they, they wear the same workout outfit. Like that's what I'm going to wear Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And it's like, dude, you got to give that a break a little bit. So, but have you seen when you looked it up, did you see the one you just kind of put around your waist? You like, instead of just wrapping it around your hips and your thighs, you see the one you just wrap around your waist?
It's like the belly belt or whatever. I mean, yeah. And same claims. You know what? If you want to get rid of the pooch, this belly belt is for you. And I mean, what's scary too is if you think about it, and we go back, like back in the day when they had the belt supports for people that were lifting heavy equipment. They thought that this is going to be really good support. And sometimes, again, some of these claims, and it's not called a belly belt, but I'm just saying that just for the sake of the podcast. But, like it's going to offer more support. You're going to burn more fat if you utilize one of these belts. And in all reality, if you look at some of the data that they found, that people were actually pushing out with their stomach muscles and actually increasing the chances of low back pain because they were decreasing core activation. And so, again, thinking about anatomy, thinking about the way the body moves, and thinking about, we're trying to teach bracing and drawing in and glute activation and neutral position of the hips. Anything that's going to take you out of any of that is going to lead to possible injuries long term. So you can melt off fat, which doesn't even happen. And so one of the reasons we wanted to bring this to the forefront, while it's actually kind of funny, it's like, okay, guys, like maybe that's a product that we would tell you to use with caution, unless you just want to try it out for fun and see if you get some crazy results that maybe I don't understand.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure that a lot of people that are, the tens of thousands of people that are listening today to this podcast.
Which we hope, right?
Yeah. Over time.
Dream big, Ken. Dream big.
We'll get there, Wendy. We'll get there. But if you think, not just the shimmy sauna, but with the other products that we're going to mention. I mean, and I'm sure that a lot of you guys that are listening right now have something like this that's probably under your mattress or under your bed or in the closet, maybe tucked away in a box somewhere in your garage. But what happens is, like what we're talking about here is like, there's these claims made, and it kind of taps into a certain nerve that's like, you know what, I can be the person I want to be if I make this investment. But you might feel some of the things that they claim is going to happen, but in the long term, it's the law of diminishing returns. It's like, well, I might have seen some results the first week or two, whatever the product may be. And in this case, maybe you did feel like, man, I sweated a ton, and so I must be getting smaller, but then you realize that you're just playing with your water weight, and you're playing with your water weight, and that's made you see on the scale that, hey, this works. But then over time, it's like, I'm not seeing anything happening. The more that I use this, so it winds up being in the closet, under the bed, in the garage, tucked away somewhere. But overall,
Well,
I think, yeah.
Hopefully with that, I'm hoping that these sauna shorts were not under the bed or, washed a few times or something beforehand and not just
dried out.
Yeah, because I mean that could whew, I don't know. I mean, again, you think about areas that get all sweaty and gross. I mean, there's certain areas on myself that I would not feel comfortable with. And that being one of them. I mean, again, you go work out, you hopefully go and shower. But I mean, if you're having something to accelerate, your way of perspiring and stuff. I mean, again, it could be great for wrestlers. It could be people, specifically for individuals that have to make weight or something like that. Like, I get it. But for an everyday, this is something that's going to melt away fat. It's the claims of what they're saying that, again, to the general public that may not be as educated in certain areas. I just don't want people to make purchases that's claiming something that really does not happen when you really look at the human body and how it works. So
what you're saying, that there is a situation, there is a place for what we're talking about right now. It's just not for long-term change and results is what you're saying.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm
saying. So overall, I think between this and the other products we're going to bring up, and I think you guys will like what's coming down the pipe. But overall, we're talking about eat less and move more. Just to put it simply, when it comes to why people make these investments, they want to change their body. And that's just from an aesthetic standpoint, right? You watch what you eat, you get outside and walk a couple blocks. And if that's more than just sitting down with a bag of chips, watching Netflix or Hulu or whatever it is that you watch all day long, if you do that, it's still more than what you've been doing. So overall, you don't need to spend, in the billions of dollars that he's been spent on some of these products. So, yeah, anything else on the Shimmer sauna shorts?
I know, right? So, I'm telling you, it is kind of a tongue twister, but no, I mean, and again, I think based on the comment that you just said, it really does kind of blend directly into where we're headed next. And, the next product that we're going to talk about is the ThighMaster. And I mean, when you think about the ThighMaster, all right, you got to think, everyone automatically thinks Suzanne Summers. And the reason being is she was the infomercial queen for let's tone and sculpt your inner thigh. And I mean, to me, I'm like, okay, like, all right. So again, when you think about the ThighMaster, and for those of you guys that really don't know what it is, it's basically this product that has two pieces of metal or two tubes really, and then a piece of metal with a hinge in the middle. And you sit down and you put these two pieces, two, I guess you call them round tubes, basically. It's kind of metal, and then it's got this foam stuff over it. And you put it in between your legs and you squeeze and then you relax, and you squeeze and you relax. And so what the claim is that it is going to help, and I love this, remove the fat in between your thighs. And so it's toning your inner thighs and it's slimming them at the same time. And so what ended up happening is people would purchase this. And again, it is a great, anything that brings your legs together, you're using your adductors or your inner thighs in order to go from your legs being out to legs coming in. So the claim of using your adductors, that's absolutely true, because that's what it's doing. However, if you want to lose the fat that is on the inside of your thighs, first of all, you can't spot reduce. So I know I'm not the first person that's probably ever said this to you, but if I am, I'm telling you, you can't spot reduce. And I personally, because this was really targeted more for females, and so that's one of the reasons I feel comfortable saying this. If you've got fat on your inner thighs and then you constantly do adductors exercises or inner thigh exercises, then you do start to build muscle of your inner thighs. So now you're making your thighs stronger, possibly bigger, because that muscle does grow, but you're not necessarily losing the fat that's on the outside of it anyway. So you're actually making your thighs bigger. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
So I don't know your
And
thoughts about
yeah,
that.
well, and the funny thing is when you look at the timeline, from when it was invented, I think it was in a physical therapist, and or actually the inventor was out of Sweden, if I'm right, and they patented it as a physical therapy device, and of course it found its way to the U.S. And you mentioned Suzanne Summers, who was the face of the ThighMaster, made it very popular, but the part of it is that coming out in the 90s, that was well before what we in the fitness industry know, for lack of a better phrase, as more understand it to be as human movement science and how the body really works. It's more than just cadaver anatomy where you have the body on the table and you this end and this end you turn on that muscle and you shorten it. But the thing about it is now that we know more about how the body works and how the body moves and what makes things move the way they move, regarding the hips and the knees specifically. Now, if we sit down a lot, to your point, Wendy, we're gonna, you're shortened at the hip flexor, so you're seated, so the front of your thighs get tight. The hamstrings and the calves just from being that seated position for a good part of the day, especially if you're a computer-based worker. And then those muscles in the inner thighs, those adductors you mentioned, Wendy, those guys get tight already just by sitting down a lot. And then you're taking a muscle that's already been, if you've been assessed for movement quality and movement efficiency, and if you see that those muscles are already tight, and again, from an assessment standpoint, if you were to squat, what that looks like is your knees migrate towards each other as you descend into the squat. So that's telling you that one of the muscles that's already doing too much work is your inner thigh muscles. And now you pull out this ThighMaster or anything that promotes the squeezing of your knees together, whether you're at the gym doing the seated adductor or the inner thigh machine. You're making these muscles that are already doing too much work do even more work, which is going to wreak havoc when it comes to what's happening at your pelvis, or your more specifically your pubic symphysis, where your pelvis meets right at the groin. And then, of course, because that same muscle goes down and crosses the knee, it's gonna play a little bit of game, with how the knee mechanics are working as well. So not only do we need to look at what's happening at the knee, but we also have to look at what's happening at the groin as well.
All right. And again, to your point, biomechanically, if your knees keep caving in, what that does is it puts all your body weight and stress on the medial or the inside part of your knee. And so, unless you're stretching and foam rolling and all that stuff in order to try to, elongate that area and that complex specifically to try to regain proper length, tension relationship, or basically proper length in that area, it could actually cause some serious knee issues, especially if people are running and jumping and doing stuff and not educated on what can happen if you don't fix that particular compensation, but yet, like you said, continue to work on muscles that are overactive. And so, one other thing that I thought was interesting is, they also were saying, oh, this is a great kind of full body type piece of equipment, and that you could take it again, now instead of being in between your knees, you can take it, hold it like this and squeeze it together and squeeze it together. And so what ends up happening then, it's really focusing a lot on your chest, because now you're squeezing it together, right? And that's actually what the pecs do. So that claim is correct. However, again, if you're seated a lot or you're sitting at a desk and you've got rounded shoulders and a forward head, and now you take this piece of equipment and you're leaning down and you're seated and you're just going through and just crunching away at the chest, that could also increase even more compensations. And again, I'm not saying that doing chest is bad. It's just, again, what are your assessment results and why are you doing something? And if you can do it with proper form and you really want to get a good press, then I think it's fantastic. You can do it at home. You are activating that area. Another one was they were saying to take it this way, like a kind of like a chomper. and you can work it in a different way, but now you're going to get your biceps involved. I thought that was pretty interesting because there is elbow flexion, which is what the biceps do. And my favorite one was that you can stand up and put it between your hamstring and your calf and do basically knee flexion. So you're getting your heel towards your glute, and you're really going to spend a lot of time working on your hamstrings. And again, hamstrings are often underactive depending on, what it is. However, if you don't have the strength to do that, you bend at the hip and you're trying to crunch this thing and your foot slightly turned out, it could lead to a lot of issues too, unless it's performed correctly. So I mean, if you consider those kind of full body exercises and stuff, then maybe the ThighMaster is for you. However, just be careful with it.
And I think, just kind of like what we talked about with the sauna shimmer sauna shorts, it's doing what it says, right? But there needs to be some context to it. So is it going to work your inner thighs? Yes. Is it going to slim them down? Not if you do it a lot. But the one thing that, again, with this information, this product coming out in the 90s, they didn't know about knee valgus, or from a fitness standpoint, and how that's going to affect the knees or the hips, or that people are forward shoulder, forward head, and flex through the spine, and no one really talks about, well, at that point in time, no one from a fitness standpoint talked about having overactive hamstrings or hamstrings that are too tight. And not to mention, like, you do a little tweak and you turn that foot out and you have a little bit of rotation at the knee. Now you have tighter lower outer hamstrings, and you're only going to make these things worse. I mean, because now, as we understand human movement science to, as far as how the body works, I mean, these things, those areas are going to get strengthened, but does the body need it from a mechanical standpoint? Do we need stronger front shoulders? Do we need stronger inner thighs? Do we need stronger hamstrings? Well, I know the hundreds of people that you've assessed, Wendy, and the amount of people that I work, that's the exact opposite of what these people need. So again, going back to the point, if you're doing this to look better, feel better, what it's doing to the muscle, or encouraging muscle imbalance versus creating better balance, which means you're going to use your body better. If you can use your body better, you're going to exercise more because you're going to feel taller, you're going to feel more upright, you're going to feel encouraged because you're stronger, because you're using your muscles better. So all the the adduction, or bringing your arms in to work the pecs, squeezing your knees in to work the inner thighs, and then putting it between the calf and the hamstring to work the hamstrings. That's the opposite of feeling better. If anything, you're going to encourage, joint dysfunction, and then the joints are going to move, less than optimally, and how you recruit muscle is going to reflect from that. So again, if we're trying to not just look better, but to feel better, then one of the things that we need to look at is, how is that piece of equipment, in this case it's the ThighMaster, getting you to move, not, and that's to say that, well, maybe someone has an emotional attachment to stronger, bigger hamstrings and stronger, bigger inner thighs, or stronger front shoulder, but maybe there's other things that you need to do before you use those things. So if you actually have to absolutely have it, well, what can you do to complement things to, put that in your repertoire without jacking you up? You know what I mean?
Well, and I think if you look at some of the advertisements that, again, talking about just the ThighMaster alone, one of the big things was the target market of, people being at home, not being able to, trying to fit everything in. Because again, even mine, we have very hectic schedules. And so trying to make time for fitness and trying to make time for yourself was one thing. So they were targeting that, saying, look, you can multitask. You could sit at home, sit down, watch TV and work out, which is basically squeezing. So again, think about the amount of repetitions that people were doing, because it wasn't do 3 sets of 15. It was like, hey, for your entire show, you can sit here and you can burn calories and melt the fat and work your adductors. Well, you're working your adductors okay, but are you overworking them at that point? And if you did something every day and you didn't do anything to counterbalance the overactivity, to your point, it really could lead to some issues long term, as obviously I think we've kind of nailed. But what I found to be very interesting was, of course, that came out in the early 90s, to your point. So when you see Suzanne Summers and she's wearing her leotard, again, when we talk about our fashion fitness, hopefully you guys listened to that one. But she was in her 90s gear, and she was promoting it and making it, rock hard, slim, inner thighs, and this is what you need. They also now have one, you ready for this, Ken? That is the ThighMaster Vibrato. ThighMaster Vibrato. And their slogan is, it strengthens between the knees and tones hard to reach areas. And now it vibrates. So it tingles and tightens. Woo! And then it says, make sure to get this product because it turns flab to fab.
There you go.
All right.
The marketing team, they put on their head. I mean, first of all, just think, okay, let's take a product that's probably on the, the backside of the curve, and you think, what can we do to tweak this thing up to get this? Hey, let's add a battery and something that vibrates, and we'll add that tingling sensation, and there you go. We have a totally new, absolutely market-shattering product now. So.
My whole thing is like, what, again, we've talked about how great, vibration therapy is, and there's a lot of benefits when you're targeting overactive muscles. Maybe they realize that these muscles were overactive, but the fact that the marketing is saying that now it's going to tingle and tighten, that's a little alarming, because it's like, okay, what are you selling here, people? And there's got to be more to that. Like, give me some more scientific research or background of why I should buy the vibration over the regular, and what is the outcome to this? So again, just something to think about when you're reading up on products. We're not saying that either one is necessarily bad, just use with caution. And, I don't know. I'll be interested to see if any of these products spike after this.
or we're getting a call from somebody, one of the two.
I know, right?
So let's move on to the next one, Wendy. The my favorite out of all four, well, actually second favorite, is the ThighMaster. Probably more favorite in name more than anything else. But basically, you take what the ThighMaster did and you do the exact opposite. So you have that V spring-loaded two arm that you're trying to press in and squeeze with the ThighMaster, and now you reverse the spring, and now you're trying to spread those two poles apart so that now we can work on more pulling than pushing, which again, going back to human movement science and what the body needs, a lot of times we're what we call pronated, or we're closed off. A lot of what we need to do just to sit up more upright and activate those muscles in the posterior is to do more opening up. And the ThighMaster actually promoted that external, or that opening motion, through trying to now spread those two springs, or to those metal pieces, those pads apart, versus putting them in. So I thought this had a lot more positive application than anything else, as far as what it claims and actually how it does it. But I know you're going to go into a little bit of what that actually means from a movement standpoint.
Well, yeah. Again, when you're looking through some of this stuff, there was a lady, the inventor, her name was Deanna Jones. And, she was, her claim was she wanted to kind of do the opposite of the ThighMaster, which, to her point, and to what your point is, the abductors, which are your outer thighs, usually are more weak. Your outer glutes are weaker, just because people are sitting more, they're more sedentary. And so when you're thinking about doing anything where you're kind of standing and you're bringing your leg out and working your outer hip, I think that biomechanically shows a lot of positive results. The problem is, for the first two positions that they gave, was you're in a seated position with your feet flat on the floor, and you took this ThighMaster and put it around your knees, and then you spread your legs as far out as you could, and then you brought them back in. And so that was the motion. Again, they weren't really telling you reps, sets, intensity, anything like that. They're just telling you to go. This is something you can do at home. So people were doing that. They were sitting down, they were watching television, and they were doing that. But when you think about truly human movement science, and what happens is when you're in a seated position, again, your hip flexors are in a shortened position, and you've got this thing around your knees, and you start bringing your knees out, and you're in a seated position, oftentimes the TFL, which is an external rotator, as well as your piriformis, which is basically, it's a muscle that attaches to your sacrum. And for those of you guys that don't know where your sacrum is like when people say my low back hurts and it hurts right here and it's kind of in the dead center right above your butt crack, that's pretty much the area that we're talking about. And this piriformis muscle is very small. It's a stabilizer of the pelvis. And so if you're constantly making that muscle work, it's usually overactive in multiple people. And the thing about the piriformis is your sciatic nerve either runs through it or beside it, depending on your genetic makeup. And that sacrum is actually supposed to move with you. So as you move, it should actually move. As you rotate, it should rotate. And when the piriformis kind of gets overactive, it could lock that down. And that's what's causing a lot of pain in people with low back pain. Or when they say they've got sciatica, it's because they're overactive piriformis. And so that was kind of alarming to me because, again, I think it's very important for people to work their glute medius, work their external rotators. I absolutely believe that. But when you're in a seated position, it really can cause a lot of low back pain issues, especially when you're doing it as so repetitive as these commercials and infomercials are telling you to do.
Right. And I mean, in the beginning of the year, a lot of I like to look at what equipment is busy and not busy, on top of the cardio equipment and things like that, your treadmills, your ellipticals. And when it comes to the selectorized equipment, and when I say selectorized fitness equipment, that's something usually where you're sitting down. The machine has one goal, and that's all it's going to do. So within the gym, you're going to see the seated abductor, and which is you're sitting down and your feet you're trying to push out against the pads to spread those knees apart, and the seated adductor, which now you have to press in just like you did with a ThighMaster as far as getting the knees to come together. So that one machine in the beginning of the year winds up being one of the most popular pieces of equipment. I remember I was in one gym. That thing did not get a break all day long. But then, it was busy. And again, talking about the SI joint and all that stuff, when you lock that down, one of the, I know this isn't a human movement science podcast, but if that sacrum is locked in, maybe that rotation that you mentioned is not happening, well, where's that motion going to come from? Well, you got to look at the neighbor to the north, which is now the lumbar spine. Now you have your low back that's being forced to flex and extend and rotate and laterally flex and make up for motion that's not coming from the hips below it because you're locked down. And if you've done a lot of repetitions from a ThighMaster or even a ThighMaster standpoint, you've created that imbalance to where now your rotators are going to be more dominant than your extender or your glute complex. So now you're lacking that motion, which you have to find someplace else. But those areas weren't meant to create all that motion. So that's what, you mentioned sciatica and, but then, again, just to back off a little bit, if you're talking about low back pain or sciatica or anything that's joint related, and if it is a legitimate injury, and that's something that needs to be diagnosed by a doctor or someone in the allied medical field versus just commenting on symptoms, which personal trainers are more likely to come across anyway. But as far as the butt basket, that's what it encourages.
Yeah, those were the first two. And I say first two, position was sitting with your feet flat. The second position was like you elevated your feet, like you put your feet on top of a box. And they said, oh, you're going to target the same muscle, but in a different way. Well, okay, now you're even more in hip flexion, so it can increase, obviously, even more stress to that area. So if you went from position 1 and you didn't do a certain amount of reps and you just did them until you got tired, now you elevated your feet and then you raised, pretty much did the same thing. They weren't saying going from position to 1 and then call it a day. They were like, here's 7 positions for you to do. So you just did a bunch with your feet flat. Now you raised your feet, still doing the exact same motion.
Yeah.
That was really concerning to me because of those issues. And a lot of times because my clients come in and they're like, I've got sciatica, I've got piriformis syndrome. And and I put them on a foam roll and they're lit up and it's like, oh, what have you been doing? And it's, they did the abductor machine, or they did some stuff that really was not beneficial for those particular individuals. Again, when you get into, another position was they had them laying flat on the ground. And so they're kind of like in a sit-up starting position, and then they did it. Again, you're still hip flexed, not as hip flexed. But again, I'm not saying that they're not working the hip external rotators, because they are. But I mean, think about the other muscles that are involved and if it's beneficial. There was one that they had them bridging up, which I actually liked this one. They actually bridged up. So they activated the glutes just with your own body weight. And then they went into that. So more glute medius, which is very weak in a lot of individuals. I felt like that was a fantastic one because they were working the glute complex with the external rotators, which are often weak, and trying to get them to work together. So I really, really liked that position that they showed. Another position was the clamshells. So they were laying on the side. And again, I like that because, again, their torso is straight, but their knees were bent and then they came out. So again, really focusing on like the glute med, of course, your abductors, some TFL. And again, TFL usually is overactive in a lot of individuals. But again, I think when you look at like the areas that it targeted, it wouldn't be too bad. And then again, one of the ones that I also really liked was position, what they call position 6, which is where they were in a quadruped position. So they were on all fours. And again, you have to activate your glute in order to maintain like a good tabletop position. And then they would go into a fire hydrant. So again, when you're thinking about that positioning, I think because you're not locked in, you're really working glute med. Obviously, you're also getting glute medius activation on the stationary leg. So again, you're still doing, you're kind of getting a little bit more activation in areas that are weak on both sides.
Right.
But, and then of course it talks about different positions that you can do in the upper body. But before I even go there, the one thing that I find a little bit of alarming, and I don't know what your thoughts are on this, is they call it the butt master. Well, what do the glutes do? Right. So they basically extend the hip. Right. And so all of this stuff is talking about external rotating, so your knees are going out, but they don't really talk about going into hip extension, and again, you only have still a limited amount of hip extension before you start to compensate and use your lower back and other things like that. But again, if you're going to call it the butt master, then it really needs to be more hip thrusting and stuff like that in order to really engage the glutes. And that's just my opinion, but I'm like, this name really doesn't say what it does. It doesn't say outer thigh master, which it really should.
Yeah. Now, again, you mentioned, the anatomy of the glutes. So if, one of our mutual friends, Lenny Parasino's, one of the things he taught me a long time ago, 20 plus years ago, is that, the phrase he said to me is like, the answer is in the anatomy. So if we're talking about the glutes or the butt, you've said the word glutes how many times so far already, but the way that it's configured, and if you look at it as a complex, you need to get it to do multiple things, not just, in and out or from in to out, but now have to also consider what are we doing to get it into extension. And that's where, if you're going to do the butt master, then, add some standing work, add some side steps, side lunges to get a different approach on the glutes. So it can be a part of a bigger picture when we talk about using the backside. So not a bad piece compared to the ThighMaster.
And they did, the last one they talked about was that you could pull it apart. So it was getting mid to low traps and rhomboids. I mean, I always am a big fan because, as you said, we're so close. So it's really basically, like you said, everything that they were doing with the ThighMaster, it was just in reverse. And of course, these products can be bought together, shockingly enough. And so, again, if you decide if you decide to buy them, I think the last price, I think I saw it somewhere, it was like $69.95 for you to get both. And if you want to go that route, that's fine.
Yeah.
But
so while you're watching your episode of Queen's Gambit, you can do, 10 reps of ThighMaster and then 10 reps of Buttmaster, or have them both at the same time, and you're just killing two birds at once.
I never thought of it that way, but yeah, I guess that's one way. But I have to say, our next product is one of my favorites, and this poor thing, and I don't even know how else to say it. We have to talk about the shake weight. So Ken, why don't you tell us a little bit about about the shake weight and what you got?
The shake weight, it's probably one of those that, if you go on YouTube or any other video on it, it's one of those that's more parodied more than anything else. More than the ThighMaster, but basically all it is it's basically an oscillating piece of looks like a dumbbell, but you have to go into a back and forth, to and fro motion, and what they call dynamic inertia, where you're constantly starting, stopping, changing direction, starting, stopping, and basically oscillating up and down or left to right, depending on you're holding it. Which I think is, it has a lot of great application, considering that you're working on your dynamic stabilizer. So as I'm holding this piece of equipment and I'm going back and forth, so if I'm holding it and right here, and I'm going back and forth, up and down, okay, left to right, then you're using your stabilizers to start and stop and start, stop, changing direction. So I love the concept. I mean, it looks funny, it looks very weird, but that's where I'd rather use something like a body blade to get that oscillating motion that the shake weight promotes, as far as how you're using the joint. So you can use it. I mean, I think it shows it as a bicep and tricep exercise. I prefer to use it more as a shoulder-based exercise, where, if I'm working with a golfer or a thrower or a rotational athlete, I'd rather have them keep their arms straight and do that oscillating motion with that shake weight in the hand and going back and forth and left to right. And my hand's off camera, but I'd rather use it as a more of a central or joint stabilizer than I would for elbow flexing and extending and going through that back and forth motion. So
And to your point, I mean, it does what it's claiming. I mean, it basically is claiming that it is, working, dynamic stability. It does. And it is targeting, basically, if you're doing elbow flexion, you are already going to get biceps. So, of course, if you're doing that and shaking, you're, like you said, you're working stabilizers as well as, quote, the prime movers that it's trying to target. So the one thing that I can give it credit for is it's actually targeting the muscles that it's claiming. And again, incorporating the stabilizers, and hopefully if you're, drawing in and not moving your entire body, that you're really getting good core activation as well. So again, a lot of positives, but the thing is just the actual movement and using it is really in public. That's why there's so many people that make fun of it. Yeah. I mean, it's been on Saturday Night Live. It was on The Daily Show, 2.5 Men. I mean, the amount of people that made fun of it actually versus the people that are using it saying, yeah, I would use this in public any and every day of the week, seems a little crazy to me. Plus, It started out as 2.5 for women weight, and then 5 pounds for men. And I was like, well, first of all, you've got gender things, like that's really crummy. And then now it's like 5 pounds or 10 pounds. But again, 5 pounds for female and 10 pounds for a man. And I'm like, again, there's some really strong women out there, and it's 10 pounds. So yes, it's going to be very challenging, but women are strong too. So that was one thing where I was like, you know what, because of that, thumbs down. But in all reality, the claims are good. So use it at your own discretion again. So
that would probably be one that I could see more in the house than I see at the gym. But good equipment, good piece of equipment. I mean, for those that we talked about and mentioned today, for what it says it does and for how it does it, I think it's probably the most true to the claim. I can see a lot more practical performance-based application for it, and that's why I give it thumbs up. But yeah, to your point, 2.5 versus 5 for males and females. The marketing team on that one could have kind of sat down and but then again, it's been around for a while before I'll leave it at that. But
so again, if you want to embarrass yourself, go for it. But I think there's some other products that you could get the same benefit, but again, it's true to its claim. It's just there's a lot of embarrassing moments that go with it.
So I think that's a good spot to end. But I think I mean we might be revisiting other as seen on TV products and maybe future podcasts. I don't know. There was a lot out there from a fitness standpoint. But I'll tell you what, I can't believe the time has already flown to where it is right now. So Wendy, I think now is a good time to stop and bid you farewell and wish you happy holidays at this point. I know we're trying to keep things evergreen and timeless, but Wendy, it's always good talking to you about all things Random Fit, and appreciate your thoughts and insights on what we talked about today.
Oh, absolutely. No, this has been super fun. I always enjoy this time of the week for sure.
All right, perfect. And thank you, Eric, for producing, doing a great job as always. But thank you guys for watching us on Random Fit. Like, follow, subscribe if you like what we talked about, and hopefully we'll see you at future episodes of the Random Fit. So thanks, guys, and everybody take care and be well.